But we're going to go to our day chair and get to our speaker. So it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Greg Alm. Greg was born in Minneapolis and raised in Bloomington, Minnesota. Currently, he is living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Greg went to college at Winona State University and majored in chemistry. He also attended the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, and majored in computer science. He then attended University of St. Thomas and earned a master's degree in software engineering. After a few chemistry-related jobs, he programmed computer mainframes until a few years after Y2K, when he was diagnosed with autism. He then made a career change to commercial driving and did that work until he semi-retired. Today, he volunteers at church doing maintenance work, personal care attendant, videography, and technology work, like Zoom and church audio visual, just like he does here. He helps host many of their Zoom meetings. Greg joined the Minneapolis City of Lakes Club in 2021. He's always willing to help. He continues to be the first one here in the room and oftentimes the last one to leave. So please help me welcome Greg Alm.
Okay. I have the honor to introduce our speaker today. Cindy, I don't know her last name, say Tlaiye. Thank you, Cindy. Anyway, Cindy was born in Mexico and raised in New Orleans, and she grew up surrounded by the food culture of the Big Easy. Yum. Critical to her is building relationships across the food and beverage team, including enjoying close work with Chef Gavin Kaysen, a Minneapolis native and James Beard Award winner, who leads the Mara Restaurant and Bar and Socca Café. Cindy's past work affiliations included the Hotel Landing by Zeta, Minnesota, Reef Technology in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, Sofitel Chicago, Magnificent Mile, in Fairmont, San Francisco, Center Plate, New Orleans, the Roosevelt, New Orleans, Waldorf, Astoria Hotel. Please give Cindy a warm Rotary welcome.
This is unusual to see myself on a screen. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to get invited to speak today and get to talk a little bit about the Four Seasons and, the food and beverage part of the hotel, which is something I'm very passionate about. And when I was told I had to speak 20 to 25 minutes, at first I was like, how am I ever going to talk that long? And then my husband said, you could talk to me for 20 minutes about how much you love an avocado. Like, of course, there's no way you won't be able to talk about something that you love so much for 20 minutes. So like you said earlier, if you need to get the hook, let me know, because I could talk about this for a long time. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a bit more about the personal side of business. I know we talk a lot about data and analysis and a lot of things going on, especially now in our market. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about the people side and what really makes, hospitality. So I'll just go through a little bit of an introduction. I want to talk a little bit about our community connections, which is such a key part of what the Four Seasons is. And then how we built our North Star team, which I couldn't have planned this above me any better to highlight that. And then really talking about how Four Seasons, whenever they choose a location, they really just embrace the destination, which is something that we've had the pleasure of doing here. So just a little bit about myself. Obviously, thank you for that intro. Like you said, I was born in Mexico, came to the United States, not legally, when I was young and, had a single mom. So it just kind of naturally ended up having to support myself financially, which landed me in hospitality. It kind of became one of those, I'm working too much, or I need to work to go to school, but I'm working too much to go to school. So here I am. So I made a career out of it, but really, really fun journey for me and not something that I ever expected. And in New Orleans, especially with hospitality being really the heart of everything we do there, and just tourism being, the main source of our economy, it was just a natural fit. We kind of talk about everything you said, referenced kind of your pre-wedding party and post-wedding party. And in New Orleans, everything became pre-Katrina and post-Katrina. And now we're pre-COVID and post-COVID. So everything seems to kind of come to your life with these big milestones. So post-Katrina, I was lucky enough to be a part of an opening team for the Waldorf Astoria, and they reopened after Katrina, and it was a really wonderful experience. That was my first hotel experience, and to see, you know, how it was just a beacon of progress and growth and restoration in a city that really needed it, really made me realize that you're doing more than just serving somebody a cup of gumbo. You know, you're really bringing something to the community, you're bringing hope and you're bringing joy. And so I knew that that was something I wanted to be a part of for the rest of my life. So I worked for the Center Plate, which is at the convention center there with 3.1 million square feet of event space. So I kind of refer to that as my Navy SEAL training of hospitality. And with that job, I got the opportunity to do a lot of task force. So I ended up opening the new 49ers Stadium, Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California, which was grueling and amazing at the same time, and fell in love with California. So I knew I wanted to get back to hotels, ended up at the Fairmont there, which is their flagship property. Again, couldn't have landed at a better location. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to do so. It's one of the most beautiful hotels I've ever seen, and was able to get promoted through that company, and then transferred within the same company to the Sofitel in Chicago. I heard you mention the Sofitel here earlier. And then through that job, the pandemic hit. So food and beverage was one of the first things to go, especially in a hotel. It was an amenity. It was not something that was needed. So unfortunately, I had to spend a few days laying off about 100 people, which was some of the worst days of my life and my career, to tell people who had worked at a property for 18 years that there was nothing for them and there was no certainty about their future. And then shortly after I had to let everyone go, I was let go. So I found myself in this, you know, world where I didn't know if my career was going to come back, if my profession was ever going to be something that would be needed again. And it was a pretty dark time, as it was for most of us. So my husband, who went to Jefferson, raised in Bloomington, has a really wonderful connection to family here, said, you know what, let's go where my home is. Let's have a support system and reset and figure things out. So that's how we landed here. And I'm very thankful that we did. And I had a wonderful support system, and I ended up opening a flower business that I took over our second bedroom and was selling flowers out of the apartment, because apparently I can't just take time off. I have to start a company. So thankfully, shortly after that, I heard about the Four Seasons, and it was a no-brainer that I think I was brought here for a reason. And it really was kind of a destination or a destiny for me to end up here. So that's my very long story of how I ended up here. So I'm super excited to speak to you today more about Four Seasons. So like I said, I wanted to talk a bit more about the people part of who we are. I think everybody knows Four Seasons as this global brand and a great reputation, but part of the reason why we have such a great reputation is because of the people that are in the buildings. You know, brick and mortar doesn't create an experience. It's our people that do. And so I wanted to speak a bit to that. And especially, I think it was a unique opportunity for me to get to learn Minneapolis. I interviewed hundreds of people for this job. We hired 350 people, about 200 of which are in my food and beverage division. So if you look at all the people that I spoke to, I really got a unique way to learn Minneapolis and see what Minneapolis is about through its people. And that was really amazing. And I was determined to make sure we had a team that looked like Minneapolis and represented the cultures of Minneapolis and the principles. And I think that's really kind of what I want to speak to today. So show of hands, who's been to the Four Seasons? Okay, not too many folks. Okay, so for those of you that been there, you've seen the beautiful product, and now you'll get to see a little bit more about the people that make it happen. And for those that you haven't been, I hope this gives you a good insight that encourages you to want to come see us.
What makes Minneapolis special is the people.
Kind, friendly, polite,
welcoming,
determined.
Everyone is just really nice here.
Despite our reputation for cold temperatures, we have warm hearts.
It's so simple. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Four Seasons is made up of many, many good people.
This project is all about commitment, being good neighbors and supporting good change in our community.
A hotel is like a homing ground. People in the community come here. I think the Four Seasons sets an example. You're saying this is what we will help, and we ask others to join with us.
1, 2, 3.
So my hope for Minnesota is that people really get to know us and that we become this place of turnaround and great hope and great promise for everybody.
We have so many opportunities ahead of us and really have great people.
With Four Seasons opening, it is the perfect way for the people who live here to really move forward.
This idea of cultural collision, more fun, more dancing, more smiling.
It's setting a world-class standard. The standards that we present are not just what people see. It's behind everybody's job counts. Because as we all know, well, you've got the baseball team. You don't win with a superstar, you win because it's a team effort.
So Isidore Sharp is our founder and over 90 years old, and he traveled here by himself for our opening, which was pretty unheard of. So it was phenomenal that we were able to get him here as a part of that. But so I wanted to talk a bit more about specifically the community connections that we speak about. You know, I think that's really what Four Seasons, in compared to some of the other companies I've worked for, does pretty phenomenally, is making sure that they're tied to the destination and supporting those community connections. So one of our biggest obviously is Gavin Kaysen. So he's our partner chef for Mara Restaurant, which is our signature restaurant, as well as Socca Café. And I knew that in my first conversation with him, I think it was my interview with him, maybe, you know, I said, you know, how long have you been in this industry? Tell me a bit about your history. And he was like, first of all, I don't like to refer to it as industry. That gives it a negative idea that it's, you know, you're working and grinding and steel, you know. And so he was like, I call it a profession. I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna like this guy. Like he, you know, I think to have somebody that's so respected and that has such a high value of what we do as professionals was really wonderful to see. And I knew that we'd have a really good relationship. And in our partnership with Gavin, obviously his Soigné Hospitality, which is his company, his brand, and the Four Seasons, when I was looking at the two sort of handbooks of philosophies, it couldn't have been a better partnership. I think if you've experienced his hospitality at any of his restaurants, it's very warm, it's very welcoming. We want everybody to feel included and everybody to leave feeling like they've been well taken care of. And that was totally aligned with his philosophies. And with him, you know, also comes the ability for us to have relationships with vendors that we wouldn't have had from the beginning. So to have that gave us the opportunity to get some really great local products that we would have had to build relationships with prior had we not had this great partnership. So highlighting a couple of them, Peterson, which was where we got a lot of our beef. Fantastic. It's on our menus, and it was really wonderful to be able to incorporate them. And then Wild Acres, which is in Pequot Lakes. Pat is he runs Wild Acres Farm, and he does all of our ducks and chickens and eggs and really fun things. And you know, the connection to local here, especially when I think of Pat, is something I've never seen before. And I think it's something really, really that this city should be proud of. You know, Pat comes to our restaurant probably on a weekly basis. He orders his chicken medium rare because he's that confident in the quality of his chicken. And he's even come in and said, I want to talk to the team at pre-shift and make sure they know how good my chicken is. And I want to tell them about it. You know, that's unheard of. Even in cities like Chicago, San Francisco, New Orleans, where I worked before, I never had the person that works at the farm and creates our product come to the restaurant that frequently with a passion to talk directly to the people selling his product. It's really something beautiful to see. And we wouldn't have had that relationship had it not been for going into this partnership with Gavin.
What makes Minneapolis an incredible community is what's around us. You put your arm out 25 miles, you're at an incredible farm. You have an amazing cocktail scene. The beer scene's incredible. being able to open a restaurant like this inside of a Four Seasons back in the community I grew up with, to be able to bring something that's so driven in what hospitality is about and driven in giving back, that's the ultimate North Star as to why I first moved back home.
So in addition to Gavin, another one of our partners I wanted to highlight is Houston White. And if you don't know Houston White, you should get to know him. He's an amazing community leader who's been doing really phenomenal work in Camden Town, specifically highlighting Black excellence, Black business, and integrating them into more networking opportunities where they wouldn't necessarily have that sort of visibility and access. And he's somebody that we've been honored to partner with. He even opened up his Get Down Coffee in Northeast. If you haven't been, it's a wonderful coffee shop. He opened the doors for us and let us do one of our recruiting events there prior to us even being open, before we had even hired anybody. So it was really wonderful to start that relationship with him very early on. And it gave us some really wonderful insight into different communities within Minneapolis, outside of downtown where we physically were. And, you heard him mention in the intro video about cultural collision. And so that's been one thing we've collaborated on. We've held a few of these cultural collision events with him. And we have a big one coming up May 19th. And it's really, again, to give the opportunity for people who don't necessarily get invitations or access to networking with people outside of their direct areas, the opportunity to do that. And so it's been a wonderful thing for us to partner with him on this, and something we're really proud of. He also, with his Get Down Coffee, has collaborated with Brother Justice, which is a local whiskey. And they have this coffee liqueur that they've made together. And it's something that we feature in our cocktails. It's something we feature in our sweets. And to be able to have, again, such a specific item that sells such a good story about Minneapolis with two different local vendors is something that is so unique and so wonderful that we've been able to do.
What I'm trying to do as a Black entrepreneur is really tap into excellence. I have so much respect for the excellence that is the Four Seasons brand. What I'm most excited about, I think, is just the way we can speak to different audiences to bring people together who otherwise might not ever connect. We're talking about uniting community. That's powerful.
He says it better than anyone. And then I also wanted to talk a bit about how we highlight local artists within the hotel. So if you have been to the hotel or you haven't, you may not know that we have an extensive collection of local artwork. So either artists that curate and execute here locally or artists that are from here. I believe we have over 25 pieces of local art throughout several areas of the hotel, whether it's the restaurant, our event spaces, our spa, our residential areas. And so it's really, really cool to be able to give people a tour of something, but also within every stop, be able to give them a story and a tie to somebody here locally that's provided some beautiful artwork for us. We have it all detailed out. So if you ever want to come do a tour of the artwork, we have that available for you. So food and beverage isn't your thing, maybe I can win you over with some beautiful art. And then I wanted to talk to you about just vendor selection. So obviously when we came on, I started at the beginning of last year, a few months before we opened, and was tasked with make it open, do everything, which is very daunting. And so being able to connect with some of these local vendors has been wonderful. And to hear their stories about how, us partnering with them has been able to allow them to hire more people and do more production and expand their business. And to know that us being a part of the community is helping other people's growth as well, again, is something that we've strived to do. So just a few of those I'd like to highlight is Thumbs Cookies, which is a mother-daughter duo. We actually have their cookies in every single one of our guest room mini bars. As well as Isidore Nuts, which was also a no-brainer since Isidore Sharp is our founder. It was like meant to be. But it's also another woman-owned company who is here locally, and they hire everybody of all abilities, which is something that again aligns with our principles. Terroir Chocolate is also a chocolate bar. We have it in every mini bar. The Link, it's a program that it's actually for our grand opening party last year on the 30th of June. We donated all of our proceeds for the opening party to 3 organizations just to show that, it was important for us to be a charitable company and give back to our community. So the Link was one of those. We've done a few different partnerships with them since then. The YWCA, the Children's Cancer Research Fund is one of our biggest organizations that we prioritize partnership with. And we actually just did about, I think 50 volunteer hours with them at their Dream Gala last week, where they raised over $600,000. So that was something wonderful that we were a part of. Fashionopolis, if you know about Fashionopolis, we hosted that last year, which was wonderful. We're going to get to do it again this year. Faribault, some of the best blankets in the world are made here locally, and they actually have partnered with us, and we have them in all of our suites to help highlight them. Martin Patrick, which is in the North Loop. We've done a lot of partnership with them, and they even donated these beautiful macage, probably $1,000 coats to our team for the winter when they were serving outside to help our team stay warm and fashionable. And the American Red Cross. So we've already hosted 2 blood donations at the hotel within this year. So we plan to do a lot more, but just wanted to highlight a few of the special people that we have as a part of our kind of family. And then with that, I really wanted to focus on the team. So the team is what I could talk forever about. So I'll try to go through this pretty quickly. But, you know, I think the best part about this whole experience and what I'm most proud of is the teams, which is why I could talk forever about them. But I think it's really important for you, if you're going to get to know Four Seasons and get to know your Four Seasons here locally, that you know the people and the faces. So I just wanted to highlight a few folks, a few of our rock stars here. So Martin Morelli, he's our executive chef. He's originally from Montevideo in Uruguay, and he's been with Four Seasons for 20 years. So incredibly seasoned chef, really, really wonderful to work with. He helms everything that has to do with anything kitchen wise within the property. And he really has leaned into Minneapolis. And even though he's from South America and moved here from California, seems to really love the winter, which is strange. And I'll tell you one story about him, which kind of to me is my favorite. This is what Four Seasons is story. But through that interview process, you know, obviously, like I said, I had to interview hundreds of people. And so I would spend a whole day just basically sitting and talking to people that would be coming in and out for 10 hours at a time. And we had nothing at the property, no food. It was a shell. We were still doing construction, and I don't drink coffee, but I drink Coke. That's my caffeine, I suppose, just kind of what perks me up. And I had stepped out to sort of get a breather, and I just think I said, man, I would really go for a Coke right now. And I go back in, I sit down, I'm in the middle of interviewing somebody else, and he just walks in and puts the Coke right there in front of me and just walks out. I was like, okay, that's what Four Seasons is about. Not only taking care of our guests, but hearing what I need and anticipating it and just getting it to me and expecting nothing in return. And it was a really, really beautiful welcome for me to this brand. Jen Kaplan, she's my assistant director of F&B, phenomenal person, despite being a New York fan. She's from New York, diehard New York fan. So we do battle about that a little bit. But she's been with the company for 9 years. She did a lot of work in Boston and Baltimore. So she's been just a wealth of knowledge of what it's like to be in a kind of lower market or smaller market city center. So her knowledge is endless. You could talk to her forever about anything. Come on in. And she's usually at the Mara host stand. Adam Witherspoon, he's our local boy. He grew up in Bloomington, went to Jefferson, and he's really made a name for himself in this community as just a beverage connoisseur. He worked at and made the beverage programs at Martina and Colita, Restaurant Alma, Grand Cafe. So I'm sure you recognize some of those names, but he's been one of our biggest connections to some of these local vendors. And I could name a million different products that he's brought on for us and created some of those relationships. Eddie, he was just recently on Care 11, so he thinks he's a celebrity. So if you come in and he thinks he can't talk to you, it's because he's a celebrity and he's French. But he was born in France, super talented pastry chef. He's been with the company since 2005 and moved here actually from another property in Mexico. But he is definitely our rising star. Keep your eye out for him. But if you go to Socca Café or Mara and you get any of our gorgeous pastries, it's all him. He's making all of that. So he's very proud of himself, as most chefs are.
Food itself, it's culture, right? It just comes from the family. When people taste my food, I want them to understand what they're eating and enjoy it, because it's simple and it's good and you can taste the quality and share.
The most powerful tool a bartender has is water. It's the first thing that should be given to you when you sit down. And every single time that I get to pay attention to your water and fill it up, it's that sign that this is indeed the place that you're supposed to be, and that's hospitality.
And then a couple other folks, Tony Yang. So he's our chef de cuisine in Mara. He worked with Chef Gavin at Spoon and Stable and Belcourt and was the sous chef at Demi. So he's great that we have that really good connection with Soigné. He is Hmong and he's incredibly proud of his Hmong heritage. He speaks like 7 languages. And when he's not in the kitchen, he's kayaking, constantly kayaking. He does catch and release fishing. So which doesn't make any sense to me, especially as a chef. I don't understand. But he's phenomenal and you'll definitely see him in the restaurant pretty much all the time. And then the last one I wanted to highlight is Caitlin. She came to us May of last year. And she's one of our sous chefs and just is incredibly passionate about what she does. I have a really great story about her, but in Mara, we had a couple that was celebrating their 20th anniversary. And whenever we see things like this, we think, okay, how can we make this special? More than just here's a cake that says happy anniversary. And so Caitlin looked it up and she said, okay, 20th anniversary gift is China. And she was like, I have my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary China at my apartment. I'm going to go grab it. And I was like, what? And so she runs to her apartment across the street, gets her grandparents' wedding china, and then presents their desserts on her grandparents' china to celebrate their China 20th anniversary. And it was just phenomenal. I mean, this is what our team does. They think of how to become a core memory for you, and they're willing to do anything to make sure that you create a memory there. So that's why I wanted to highlight them a bit because they're pretty phenomenal. So this is who we are. And I wanted to make sure that, again, beyond the beautiful lights and the beautiful building and everything that's shiny and new, really what I wanted you to learn about us is who we are.
It's not just about the food, right? It's about the whole experience itself. I mean, I see it firsthand with Gavin every day. If you put care into it, food not only nurtures the body, but it really nurtures the soul.
And the last thing I want to touch on is, again, just kind of going back to embracing the destination. And I wanted to give a couple of examples. So if you see, that's our GM, Florian, and he's with Crunch, the mascot for the Timberwolves. So it happened very coincidentally, but whenever we need our team to all come together to help. So, for example, we were actually the first Four Seasons in history to hold 3 major league teams at the same time within the hotel. Which as a property that's only been open for less than a year is pretty phenomenal. But we had MLB, NHL, what am I missing? NBA, 3 teams at the same time. So if you can imagine, things get a little crazy at the hotel. So when we need everybody's hands on deck, we do a crunch. We say, okay, we're going to call a crunch, and then we'll send it out and we say crunch in housekeeping, crunch in interim dining. And then I went to a Timberwolves game and I was like, the mascot's name is Crunch. Like, we couldn't have planned this any better. And to be honest, I was a little tipsy and I was like, we got to get him to work. He's got to be our Crunch mascot. And we did. So it was a drunk thing that came to fruition that I was very proud of. And so we did a town hall with all of our team and we had him come out and everybody was so thrilled and it was super fun. And so now whenever we need help, we say Crunch and then we all howl like wolves. So if you hear howling going on in the hotel, go that way because we need help. And then also our Nordic village. So if you didn't see, we have this beautiful terrace outside. And when we closed for the summer, I was like, no, we're going to do something. We've got to do something in that space. Minnesotans love winter. They embrace winter and they want things to do in the winter. So our engineering team built 5 custom cabins, which is phenomenal to begin with. And then our executive chef, Martine, dug into the Scandinavian culture and we called it Nordic Village. And he created this gorgeous menu and you could book a reservation and sit in your private cabin and have a true Minnesotan winter experience, which turned out to be hugely successful. We ended up having to extend it for a month longer than we wanted to because of demand. So I think it just goes to show that, the more you learn about your community and what they want, they'll come, they'll do it and they're excited to try new things. So it was super fun experience and look out for this year's because it's going to be even bigger. We had a curling lane, so Lord knows what we'll have this year, maybe ice skating on the pool or ice fishing on the pool, who knows? And that's really it. So I just, wanted to, again, give sort of the idea of hospitality and how the golden rule can extend to all of our businesses and everything that we do, and the importance of having good connections. And I really appreciate being here and being able to connect with all of you. I think the interconnectivity of all of us is what makes us successful, whether it's hospitality or whatever the business is. And I look forward to making more connections with you.
No. In honor of your speaking with us, we'd like to have you sign this book. We give it to a third grader in from the Minneapolis nonprofit Way to Grow, the Grow by, and here's a pen for yours to keep, work on that. And then we also like to give you this brochure, encourage you to look it over and maybe consider joining our club, or maybe if you know other friends out there, come and have them join us. We're a service-oriented community of professionals and people who want to help others. So we appreciate so much your being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Cindy. Great presentation. I'm actually going to the hotel this afternoon for coffee at Socca. So I also wanted to thank our volunteers for today, our greeter, Steve Olson, the reflection from Maria Bavender, vocational from Lisa Moncrief, our day chair, Greg Alm, thank you again, Zoom masters, Anna, Greg, and Brock for supporting, club masters, Dick and Steve, and then club admin interns in the back, Savannah and Raylyn. Please continue to invite guests. So the peer group and happy hour tomorrow. Mark I'm not sure if Mark's still here in the back. He did send out, there's instructions for parking. So please scroll down to the bottom of what Matthew sent out. It's information about tomorrow's event. There's instructions on how you want to plug in and get into the parking ramp, basically. So please look at that. I was trying to bring it up, but was not able to do that in a short amount of time. But and then next week, May 10th, is our offsite at Schmidt Music. So please do not come here. Please go to Doug's place of work there. It should be an awesome tour. After that, May 17th, Josh Bragg will talk about Cuban Water Project. Amber Sousen on the 23rd, one of my partners from my office. She was the president of Urban Sketchers International. It may be interactive, so you may have to get out a sketch pen. We'll see. You don't have to share it. And then Street Voices of Change will be here on May 31st. With that, please go out and have a wonderful Rotary Week.